October 3, 1943. Camp Ruston, Louisiana. A 3-square-mile grid of barracks and barbed wire buried in late summer humidity. The air tastes of wet straw and diesel. A dog barks down by the motor pool. You're standing in a muddy lane as a column of trucks pulls in. Men hunched beneath wool greatcoats, panting, coughing, hands raw from ropes and cramped rail cars. On the front truck sits a lanky lieutenant with a weathered face. Lieutenant, or Oberleutnant, Friedrich Hahn, still gripping his Mauser by reflex, even though his pistol is locked away and his hands are cuffed. Beside him, a corporal, a young man named Kurt Neumann, squints into the glare and tries to measure the size of the camp against the sky. They've seen battlefields and blitzes, but nothing in their memory is prepared for the low, constant mechanical chorus that greets them. The snarl of engines, the clack of gears, the quick rat-tat of wrenches. Jeeps, dozens of small, boxy vehicles with flat hoods and short wheelbases, slip in and out between rows of tents like nervous animals. They are everywhere, scuttling to the latrines, ferrying officers, towing trailers stacked with freshly painted crates. One of the vehicles bumps to a stop, and a broad-shouldered American sergeant with a .45 at his hip waves a captured German over to translate. The Jeep's engine idles with a steady, economical rumble. Its driver, a private in a faded olive shirt named Joe Martinez, laughs and offers a cigarette. The prisoners are moved toward the processing tables, but their eyes don't leave the little machines. They are used to heavy, handcrafted equipment, armored cars patched and welded in makeshift yards, tractors cobbled together from whatever metal can be found. In Germany, a machine meant to last a lifetime carried a price and a provenance written into every rivet. Here, the first sensation is that the Jeeps seem cheap, not in the sense of flimsy, but in the sense of being everywhere, built to be used and replaced without ceremony. Hahn runs a hand along a hood, feeling the stamped metal and the crisp lettering Willys near the grill. He remembers, half-formed and incredulous, the stories back home. Radios that broke during the first rains, tank parts that took months to replace. In contrast, the Jeep's panels are simple, almost utilitarian art, each piece fitted to a standard and bolted on with machine precision. The idea sits like a new uniform on their shoulders. What is the cost of a vehicle that is multiplied like cigarettes? A captain from the camp staff escorts a group of prisoners past a fenced lot where rows of fresh Jeeps line up like a cheap small army. One car has a hand-lettered sign on the windshield, WPW 1943, First Lieutenant R. Brown. Another is parked beside a flatbed loaded with gas cans and spares, spare axles, spare tires, stacks of ignition coils. The prisoners notice a huge plywood pallet being rolled past, stamped with a number like shipment paperwork, Willis Overland Motor Company, Toledo, Ohio. The name hits like a bell. Ohio, Detroit, the industrial heartland. Neumann asks in broken English, how many of these are made in a month? The American private grins and replies, try 100 a day. It sounds like bragging. To the Germans, it reads like a fable. As dusk slides over the camp, the prisoners talk in whispers in the long barracks. They pass around a greasy cigarette and trade observations. The Jeeps are not meant to be monuments, these men say. They are meant to be tools, disposable, replaceable. Hahn remembers the way his regimental truck broke down outside Kharkov and how months passed before a proper replacement arrived. Here, the supply piles, crates of rations, bolts, and fuel, seem endless. Beyond the fence, an American maintenance crew works through the night by floodlight, arms greasy as they tighten bolts with air-driven wrenches and spin tires off with practiced hands. Each movement is a micro-economy of time and motion. One man reaches, another steadies. A conveyor of parts moves without pause. To Hahn and his comrades, raised in a military culture that prized craftsmanship and resource conservation, this is industrial efficiency taken to an almost offensive extreme. Before sleep, inside the thin wooden bunks, they hear the distant whine of more jeeps on the gravel road, a sound that will come to mean movement, speed, the ability to redeploy. It nags at their pride and at the order of things they had assumed, that steel and stubbornness could outlast numbers. In the morning, a small American broadcast truck comes through, and a radio operator demonstrates the vehicle's role in a modern army: reconnaissance, messenger, medical run. As the radio hums, the men watch the Jeep pivot and leap over rough ground, shrugging off potholes and mud with an ease their heavier vehicles never managed. The sight crystallizes into a simple, damning thought. Quantity, not the rare quality of a single perfect tank, is the hidden weapon. They will soon learn how many Jeeps can mean in practice. For now, on that heavy October day, the prisoners drink in the sight of abundance and the strange informality of an army that could treat mobility as a consumable. It will not be a single Jeep that humbles them, but the sum of thousands, each one cheap enough to be driven without ceremony, each one a small, relentless advantage. The first seed of disbelief is planted. American machines are not crafted like heirlooms. They are manufactured like bread. The question that follows, unspoken and stubborn, is whether an enemy that can eat like this will ever be starved. The roar of Toledo doesn't sleep. Inside the Willis Overland factory, it is summer 1942, and the floor is a forest of steel and movement. Foreman Amos Grady walks the line at dawn. He touches a new pressed fender and checks the gauge. A line of riveters hammers in rhythm, pistons striking like a marching column. Where German workshops favor a master fitter and long apprenticeship, Grady's line is organized into stations: stamp, weld, paint, assembly. Each worker learns a narrow, repeatable motion. At one station, a woman clamps a windshield frame into place with the same motion thousands of times a week. At the next, a teenage recruit tightens a chassis bolt to spec on a pneumatic wrench. Men from diverse states, Ohio, Michigan, Texas, move with a shared shorthand. When a Model MB Jeep leaves the line, it doesn't carry the soul of a single craftsman. It carries the discipline of a system. This system is what the captured Germans will later call industrial concentration, a relentless focus on reducing build time and parts complexity. In contrast to the ornate and slow process of German engineering, where a single machine might be tailored for performance, Willis engineers simplified: flat fenders, interchangeability, standard bolts and gauges. The core is the donor engine, the Go Devil inline engine, robust, easy to maintain, and standardized across many vehicles. If a part failed in France, American supply doctrine made sure a replacement could be shipped in days, not months. Ford factories, too, pressed in, producing GPW versions of the same design under license. The military procurement officers, accountants, and engineers had created a machine that treated vehicles as consumables, inexpensive, ubiquitous, and quickly repairable. Back at Camp Ruston, Lieutenant Hahn and Sergeant Neumann are given a tour under guard. They pass an improvised classroom where an American mechanic shows how a broken axle is replaced in under an hour using common tools and a pre-cut spare. The demonstration is humiliating in its simplicity. Neumann runs his hand over the spare and notes the stamped serial numbers. Parts are keyed to fit, not tuned by hand. They are told of the replacement doctrine, a phrase that will stick. Lose a Jeep, another is waiting down the line. Hahn presses his forehead against the chain link, hearing the clank and fume of supply, an entire nation turned into a logistic brain. The story that will be told in officers' quarters back in Germany often focuses on metallurgy and ingenuity, superior engineering, they insisted. But here the difference is statistical. Thousands of identical machines, each one cheap enough to be driven without ceremony, and a rail network prepared to move them. A German lieutenant, who had been a mechanic in the Wehrmacht, now interned in Ruston, sketches a diagram on a scrap of paper by lamplight. The German supply chain, he writes, is circular and local, artisan shops serving units. The Allied supply chain is a web, long, redundant, and ruthless. Out on maneuvers in Europe, those webs revealed themselves in brutal arithmetic. A British report quoted at the camp notes how an armored battalion can be reconstituted within days if transport exists to ferry replacement vehicles. For the Germans, tanks and half-tracks required specialized workshops and skilled machinists. The Allies could cannibalize parts from any thousands of jeeps and weld them into service. The practical consequence is not romantic, it is arithmetic. A front that can replace 1,000 broken trucks has a clear advantage over a front that must wait for 100. Meanwhile, civilians back in Ohio watch the conveyor belts with a sense of mission.